Hello, my name is Hicker in Wiseman, Alaska. I'm reporting on a week of weather observations for ATM101 with the University of Alaska Fairbanks with Richard Collins. The week of weather I'm reporting on is started on Monday, February 4th and goes to Friday, February 8th of 2019. I took my observations every day, times ranging between 10:30 and 12:45 Alaska Standard Time, so late morning, early afternoon. The National Weather Service site I reference is located in Battles, which is approximately 50 miles southwest of me here in Wiseman, but is the closest National Weather Service observing site there is, so I'll have to make it work. The readings are pretty similar and definitely show similar trends, but there is some variation based on the distance between me and Battles. On Monday, February 4th, 2019 here, I took my observation at 12:45 and started by resetting the min-max data in my thermometer. It was 11.5 below Fahrenheit and approximately one-half sky cover. The sky was covered by, or one-half covered by stratocumulus clouds. Uh, they're a relatively high layer of clouds, and I could see sky between, or blue sky between relatively well-defined cells, causing me to identify them as stratocumulus. There was no precipitation, and the wind was coming out of 350 degrees, so basically north, at a Beaufort number of 2. I could feel the wind on my face, there was some leaves rustling, and my breath and any snow I tossed in the air would drift downwind. All my wind headings are corrected for declination. Now, I had no min-max data on this day, as I reset my thermometers moments before taking my observation. So you can see here that the min-max lines join to that daily observation point. For Tuesday, February 5th, I took my observation at 10:45 in the morning, Alaska Standard Time, and it was 21 below Fahrenheit. Cooled off quite a bit that first day. The sky was one quarter covered with cirrostratus clouds, which is a high, relatively thin, uniform layer of clouds. There was, as expected from cirrostratus clouds, no precipitation. The wind was still from 350 degrees, but this time it was a little stronger at a Beaufort number of 3 with small twigs moving. My face was cold in the wind. Um, and any snow I tossed in the air blew downwind a little faster. The minimum temperature recorded between my observation on Tuesday and when I started on Monday was negative 23.9 Fahrenheit, and the maximum was negative 10.5 Fahrenheit. On Wednesday, February 6th, I made my observation at 11:15 in the morning, and it was 1.1 degrees Fahrenheit. The sky was three-quarter covered with altostratus clouds, a uniform featureless gray layer of clouds that almost completely covered the sky. It was snowing lightly. The wind was coming from 360 degrees, that's due north, and it was at a Beaufort number of 2. I could feel the wind on my face clearly, and some dead leaves were rustling in the branches. Uh, the minimum temperature in the 24-hour period recorded between my Wednesday observation and my Tuesday observation was 17.5 below Fahrenheit, and the maximum was 1.2 degrees Fahrenheit. For Thursday, February 7th, I made my observation at 10:30 in the morning, with it being 10.2 degrees Fahrenheit. The sky was completely covered with a low, solid layer of uniform gray clouds that I identified as stratus clouds. It was snowing. The wind was still at 360 degrees, and this time it was a little bit stronger at a Beaufort number of 3. There was some small twigs and branches swaying in the wind. The minimum temperature observed for the 24 hours prior was 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit, and the maximum was 10.4 degrees Fahrenheit. On Friday, February 8th, I made my observation at 10:45 a.m. It was 16 degrees Fahrenheit, and the sky was still completely covered with a low uniform layer of stratus clouds. It was snowing heavily. The wind was coming from 010 degrees at a Beaufort number of 2. I felt the wind on my face, and there was some dead leaves rustling. The minimum temperature in the 24 hours prior was 10.8 degrees Fahrenheit, and the maximum was 16 degrees Fahrenheit. In summary, the National Weather Service readings in Battles were trending the same as my measurements but were significantly higher the whole time. I think this has to do with them being further south, a little out of the mountains, slightly lower elevation, and just in a slightly different location, causing them to have some different temperature patterns. Also, I noted that the National Weather Service recorded a drop or a low in temperature almost exactly a day before I did. And I think that has to do with that Bettles is about 50 miles away from me, and then that colder air mass as it moved in, it got to Bettles a day before it got to me. Um, I think this trends with some other observations I'll make here in a little bit. The temperatures dropped after my first observation, hitting a low on Tuesday morning, just before I made my observation there, and then climbed steadily throughout the rest of the week. As to the barometric pressure, all values given here are corrected for altitude to give true sea level pressure. On Monday, I recorded a value of 1015.9 millibars. On Tuesday, 1014.2. On Wednesday and Thursday, I recorded 1017.6 millibars, and on Friday it climbed all the way to 1019.3 millibars. It's a relatively small variation overall, but definitely there is some variation that did correspond to the low temperature dip on Tuesday, and then did kind of climb throughout the rest of the week, as did the temperature. This does trend similarly to Bettles' pressure, and again, I consider a possibility of Bettles' pressure being a day ahead of my pressure recordings. The lowest pressure was recorded on Tuesday and then climbed throughout the rest of the week. On all these weather maps here, I put a red dot that's approximately where I'm located. On Monday, February 4th, 2019, there was a pretty predominantly high centered over Wiseman here. It was another high up out on the ocean here, and a low to the northeast of me. And showing these high light-colored clouds here, these cold high clouds, I think they contributed to those cirrus clouds that I saw the next day. There's a large low down here over the ocean, which will, as we'll see here throughout the rest of the week, this front will move up and bring all these thick clouds down here up into interior Alaska. There's a warm front moving pretty much due north here, a cold front that's moving almost due east right now, but as this low is circulating counterclockwise, these will sweep up into interior Alaska. This high over me here, along with these dark gray areas here, show that there's very little clouds, which corresponds to the altocumulus cloud layer I observed on Monday, with very very broken layer certainly. On Tuesday, February 5th, the high that was initially over me moved toward the northeast. This low here is sweeping up over the ocean still, bringing this occluded front up with it, which is when a cold front catches up with a warm front. So there's definitely some clouds and moisture and precipitation all associated with that. There's another big front moving up behind it, and a couple lows located here over the Gulf of Alaska with a warm front pushing north and bringing with it a lot of clouds and moisture. There's this thin band of really high cirrus clouds here over me, which is what I observed on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I can see some defined darker lower clouds here in my area, which is definitely what I observed here with low stratus clouds moving in. Some kind of widespread precipitation, freezing fog, that kind of stuff going on up there, which again I observed light snow, which correlates to this precipitation noted here. There's a pretty large low developing down here to the kind of south of Siberia over the ocean, bringing up this band of clouds seen here along with with these fronts. And this is all kind of getting accelerated northward between this counterclockwise rotating low and this clockwise rotating high here. It's kind of launching these clouds up to the north here, kind of like a baseball pitching machine. There's another low out here over the Gulf. That's not all too much lower than this high. It's not a very strong low. This high that was up over me is now way out over Canada and kind of out of there for the rest of the time being. For Thursday, February 7th, there's this warm front coming in, moving over me, which I definitely saw in warming temperatures and along with the kind of steady drizzly state precipitation I was getting. Lots of clouds present, which again correlates with what I was seeing. There's a lot of frontal movement going on here. This front's swinging down, catching up with this one. This cold front's moving to the east here. It's going to start moving to the northeast here shortly. A couple lows along them, and this one here behind them, pushing in yet another front. So here's an occluded front, a cold front caught up with a warm front there. A lot of clouds over the state. Big, massive high down here. Really pushing, keeping clear air down over the Gulf here, but helping bring more clouds up into the interior actually, along with this low here, which is also generating clouds over there. So we get to Friday, we see a massive low with really closely spaced isobars indicating high winds and a lot of movements. A really low with the central valley down to 953 millibars. That's developed down here on the southwestern coast of Siberia. Correction, southeastern coast of Siberia. And it's bringing this line of clouds up here along with this front, which is swinging over. This front has started, this cold front's catching up with this warm front here, causing some lifting action, which brings about the heavy snow I observed that day. A lot of cloudiness still in the area, which and clouds were very low and snowing hard here on Friday. Precipitation, snow shower or snow indicated on the weather map here as well. This high, still big strong high out over the Gulf here, and sandwiched between this low and this high is these fronts here and this band of clouds kind of moving northward. This warm front swinging out to the west here, cold front's kind of swinging down to the east. There's another low over the Arctic Ocean here, helping feeding a little bit more moisture down into interior here. Final thoughts on the weather maps here. In general, the frontal movement here seems to be from the southwest, and even with the way the lows are causing winds and the highs are causing winds, in my general area, one would expect a general south wind actually throughout this week, which is very different from what I observed, which I think is in large part due that I'm in a pretty tight valley that affects the winds quite a lot, and possibly even a bit of a down valley wind caused by the heating of the earth, although there's not really much sun for that yet. In conclusion, overall this week was relatively warm for being early February, which was partly due to this warm front passing through, but general overall it was pretty mild. We got an unusual amount of precipitation over here the last couple days of the observation period and into the weekend following. We got almost 3 feet of snow, which is a very heavy dump for that time of year, or for this region of generally dry climate in interior Alaska in general. And finally, the wind speeds listed are always an approximation, based on observations. So don't read too much into the jump between a B for number of 1 or a B for number of 2 or a B for number of 3, because kind of depends on the observer. It's not a hard and fast measurement. In conclusion, I think that covers us up here. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.